Welcome to Unclouded I'm Ashley Brooks.
And I'm Ty Gowan.
This is your stop for astrological forecasts and cosmic chit chat.
I love that so much.
I'm glad. Trademark.
So what are we here for today, Ash? We come from a show called Haunt Me, but we have something else to do now, right?
Yeah, we did Haunt Me. We started that back in 2012.
2012 as of recording yesterday. So it was like 2012, whatever the day is. Sorry, I'm messing that up. So doing the math 12 years ago as of yesterday, that's where Haunt Me started, is what I'm trying to get to.
Wow, okay. Yeah, and...
Because that's the day the building burnt down. Remember?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we started this project, a beloved local restaurant burned down.
So that's how we remember the night, because Facebook reminds all of our friends that the building burned down the night that Haunt Me started.
Yeah, so I hope everything is safe tonight.
That's right. We're starting another project, and actually we just exited Aries season last month, so we're safe from fire for a while.
That's true. We're grounded. We're recording this in Taurus season, so that's nice. But Haunt Me was a really fun project. Ty and I and our other friends went around to a bunch of supposedly haunted locations in Maine and investigated and got to explore all kinds of fun places.
Yes, and lore.
Yeah, lots of
legend.
lore.
I learned so many more stories about the state this way. Like, these are the things you don't learn in school, is what we learned on Haunt Me about our state.
It's true. There's no shortage of weird stuff happening in Maine.
And we kind of want to keep the air of weird stuff going. That's why you approached me with this podcast idea. Tell everyone a little bit more about what you want to accomplish here, because you've been doing the Unclouded Eye for a while, right?
Yeah, so Unclouded Eye is my astrology. It started out as a blog back in the day, like around 2014 or so, and then I started doing daily astrological forecasts on Instagram, and that is pared down a little bit to like a few times a week, just when there's relevant transits happening. But I really wanted to have a podcast, and I've tried to do things on my own, but I thought it would be more fun to have a friend and bring it in, and also just kind of incorporate other weird history and lore in. And who better to ask than my old friend Ty Gowan?
Well, I appreciate being brought in. I'm ready to talk about the weird. I'm primed for my section of the podcast.
Yes.
But why don't you tell them a little bit more about the structure of the show and what we're trying to do? And as well as your forecast and what you're bringing to the table for that element, because people know you that way through the Unclouded Eye, bringing those transit forecasts to the table.
Right, exactly. So on this podcast, we are going to go through the big transits for every week. This is going to come out every Monday, and we are going to talk about the big transits that are happening, what you can expect that week, how to plan accordingly, if you will. And then for each episode, Ty is giving me a mysterious birth chart of either a person or an event that I then have to analyze blind, not knowing who this belongs to. And then after analyzing it and hopefully nailing it, you're going to tell me a little bit about that person and the weird story that goes along with them.
That's the goal, at least. So what I've done this week and what I want to keep doing is finding an interesting topic to learn a little bit more about. So this week we're going to do haunted houses, because we have a lot of experience with that.
We do.
And then what I want to make sure that we do with that person, the birth chart, is that I want to continue to find weird connections between people that you wouldn't expect to maybe have a relation to the strange topic that we're going to talk about. So that's what today is about. You're going to do a birth chart for someone very prolific who people might not think has a connection to the paranormal, and we'll touch on that briefly.
I love that. I'm curious if we'll be able to see elements of that in their birth chart.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting, too, because doing a little bit of information about their background and, you know, how they grew up, I think that's where we'll see definite parallels to your birth chart, and maybe find out what aspects fine-tune them a little bit to pump them over to the paranormal side.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great.
So do you want to kick off the forecast this week? This is our first one ever.
Yes.
We're going to hit the transit forecast so that you guys can plan your week accordingly to the planetary energy aspects, right, Ash?
Yes, that's great. That's great. Thank you, Ty. So we are talking about the week of June 3rd through the 9th right now. And we're just going to hit on the big stuff, the stuff that you really need to be aware of, that pretty much everyone's going to be feeling, regardless if you follow astrology or not. So, you know, when you're out in the world and people are just being grouchy, like people are sensitive to energies, even if they don't know what's going on. So it can be helpful to be clued into the subtle frequencies.
It's like a weather forecast.
It's very much like it. It's a celestial weather forecast. Okay, so on Monday, June 3rd, we have a very cool astronomical event happening. We have an alignment of 6 planets in the sky. If you look out at the sky around 25 minutes before sunrise when you're looking east, you'll be able to see Jupiter and Mercury lined up with the moon, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus, but you might need a telescope to see Uranus and Neptune, but the others should be visible with the naked eye, forming this really cool pattern in the sky where they're all lined up. This is a very auspicious thing. Back when this would happen in ancient times, this was considered a really potent spiritual and fortunate time for change and growth in humanity. So this is a really cool thing that a lot of astronomers and astrologers alike have been looking forward to.
In the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, the second season with Korra, when that happens, it opens a gateway to the spirit world.
You know, I think that sounds spot on.
Okay.
Let's go with it.
Let's go with it.
So let's begin with Monday, June 3rd. Mercury is moving into Gemini.
Out of retrograde?
Mercury is not retrograde.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Thankfully, right now anyway. It will be later this summer during Leo season. We're going to have that. It actually will go retrograde on my birthday.
Perfect. That's great for you,
Isn't
Ash.
it?
I know that you love that so much. You've mentioned it to me before that that's a great present for you.
Yeah, I mean, you had Mercury retrograde on your birthday this year.
But I'm also an Aries, so you can refuse that. I don't know if you knew that astrologically, but Aries can say no to any aspects that don't benefit them. That's how I live my life.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think fire signs in general can just burn through it. So I think we'll be okay. So Mercury moves into Gemini on Monday, June 3rd at 3:36 a.m. Eastern Time. And it's only going to be there for a little over 2 weeks till June 17th. And that is a perfectly normal length of time for Mercury to be in a sign. It's a zippy planet. It's the fastest planet in the solar system. I mean, not counting the moon, which, you know, is a planetary body. That one changes signs every 2 days or so. Mercury moves very quickly. So Mercury is actually the ruler of Gemini. So it is coming home to the sign that it rules over, which kind of gives it a boost. It gives it a strengthening. And it's joining Jupiter, Venus, and the sun all in Gemini. So we've got a lot of Gemini energy this week. So this is really great for like activating the mind, getting really curious, wanting to learn new things, being maybe a little bit more scattered. You might not be able to dive deeply into a project over the next couple of weeks. You might be like, let me try a little bit of this and then move over to a little bit of that. And you might find that multitasking is going to be where it's at for you. And in general, I feel like all this Gemini energy is going to make people a lot more talkative. Mercury in Gemini is one of the more talkative placements. They love to talk about ideas and just whatever's on their mind. So you might find that people are a bit more chatty.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds like all those aspects. It's the twin clump.
It is a twin clump. Because if you think about it, one planet in Gemini is like dual energy. So each one is like 2. So that's like 8.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, Mercury and Gemini too. That's a good thing to touch on, the fact that Gemini is the twins. So when you have Mercury in that placement, you can be of 2 minds. Like you can more easily see other people's point of view, but like not get too attached to something. It's a little bit more like being able to kind of go back and forth, maybe.
Not second guessing yourself so much, but understanding another mind type of thing?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Then on Tuesday, June 4th, the sun conjuncts Venus. So those are also in Gemini, and everything is kind of clumping up there.
Another twin clump.
Yep. So the sun and Venus are conjuncting at 11:33 a.m. Eastern Time at 14 degrees Gemini. And the Sun conjunct Venus is a really nice aspect. It's great for getting along with people, especially because Gemini is such a social sign. So this is a great day on the 4th to see your friends, to go out on a date. Like, energies are really like positive and harmonious with this aspect.
Cool.
Yeah, it's also great for creativity and art. Anything with Venus heavily featured is going to be really good for like artists and musicians and anybody that kind of utilizes that creative vision in their work. So another thing, because this is in Gemini, this is going to be really great for writers especially.
Okay, cool.
Sun and Venus conjunct. I know you're a writer, so am I. So on Tuesday the 4th, we might want to
block the
some
calendar.
writing
That's right.
in. Yeah. and
Turn
so-
the phone on Do Not Disturb and walk away.
Yeah, so this is at like 11:33, but we'll be able to feel it throughout the day. So if you can't get there right at that time, it's okay. Thursday, June 6th, we have the new moon in Gemini. So I wasn't kidding when I said there's a lot of Gemini happening this week.
Yeah.
There's just so much of it. So the new moon in Gemini is perfecting at 8:37 a.m. Eastern Time with the sun and the moon both in 16 degrees Gemini. And Venus is actually still kind of in a conjunction with the sun at this point. So it's sort of playing with the sun and the moon. Like they're all together in the same little section of the sky for this. So the new moon in Gemini is interesting because new moons tend to be more introspective. They're more inward. They may be a time when you're feeling a little bit more depleted. You might need more rest, more relaxation. But Gemini is one of the most social places in the zodiac. So the new moon in Gemini is kind of like this walk in duality where you're maybe wanting to have some time to yourself, but like around your friends. Like this might be a good time for like everyone to kind of get together and like all work on different projects, or, you know, your friends in the room watching a movie while you're reading a book next to them. You know,
That's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I do a lot of my work.
Yeah.
Is like in a social situation, but external from it. I just want to be around the noise.
Yeah, it
noise in the
helps.
next room is my favorite.
Absolutely. Like when somebody's watching a movie, like that's the most comforting thing. Like when you know somebody's there doing something else. You know?
Exactly. I love it. I write so well when Erin's watching movies.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great day for that. And you might find that you get drained if you're like having to interact too much with people. But yeah, like being around them, like going to a crowded coffee shop, you might get like some really good work done that day.
Cool.
Okay. And then finally, on Sunday, June 9th, Mars enters Taurus. So this is the first thing that wasn't super Gemini-centric. At 12:34 a.m. Eastern Time, Mars moves into Taurus, and it's going to be there from June 9th through July 20th. So Mars typically spends about 5 or 6 weeks in a sign, so that's not an abnormal amount of time for it to be there. And it is joining Uranus in Taurus. So that's it for Taurian energy in that place of the sky. Mars in Taurus is the definition of stubborn.
Okay.
This is a really stubborn placement. And we might notice that people are digging in their heels a little bit. They might be more resistant to having to do a lot of work. Mars governs like action and activity and aggression in the physical body. And it can also govern work in so much as like how much effort and energy you're putting into something. And Taurus is all about beauty and comfort and relaxation and like savoring energy. So if you can kind of pair those up in your mind, it's like great for, you know, like going out dancing or like writing a song, but it's not so good for just like daily grind type stuff.
Okay.
Or for like having to be really impulsive. This is slower moving energy. Mars and Taurus is like, no, I'm going to take like an hour to get ready and then I'm going to like make my way to dinner and take my time with it.
It sounds like the differential here is the beginning of the week, very social focused. Everyone's on the same page, a lot of good energy there, a lot of stuff moving along. You can get a lot of stuff done. However, there's this kicker at the end that don't hold on to that too long because people are going to lock down towards the end of the week. Maybe?
Yeah, I think so. And this is an ongoing thing. This is like for the rest of June and the first few weeks of July. So it's not going to be quite as like potent because it's going to be spread out over that time.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
But you might notice that people are starting to be like, let's just kind of chill out and take our time. And I think it might be harder to get people to change their minds, and people could be really reactive if you try.
So if you need someone to change your mind about something, do it in the front half of the week.
Yeah, because Gemini is way more like, I can kind of see what you're talking about. I can see the other side. I'm not like super attached. Whereas Taurus is like, no.
If you need that raise at work, it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday conversation and not a, well, let's wait until next week. Don't do that then. Do that now. Ash is telling you to ask for the raise now.
Ask for that raise while Mars is in Aries, because Mars in Aries is impulsive. If you're a little more impulsive and direct, you're going to get rewarded for that. Once it's in Taurus, you might find that if you just kind of like unplug a little and relax and like go with the flow each day, then you might find that things are a little more harmonious.
I love that. We're making people money on the first episode of this podcast already.
Yes. Thank you.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Okay. So that is what I have for you this week. And you had something for me.
Yeah. Do you want to first talk about our topic of the week?
Yes, I think we should.
Okay. So the topic for this episode, to give people a little extra something because they tuned in for the astrology forecast, is Ash and I are going to give our opinion on haunted houses. Now, we have a little bit more, I think, experience with haunted houses than like most people might. So I thought it might be a good opportunity to give maybe like 5 minutes to talk about that experience. And maybe if you don't mind, I can just ask you a couple questions about haunted houses in general and kind of give our experience and what we believe them to be.
That sounds great. Let's do that.
So what do you think can cause a house to be haunted, Ash?
So I think there's a couple different ways to look at that. I think that in general, hauntings are energy. So everybody has energy. Everyone has a particular energy or frequency that they hold, in life. And I think that we can leave traces of that energy behind. Like if something big happens in a space, like if there's a lot of joy there, or if there's a lot of sorrow or anger, that energy can linger there. And I think sometimes there can be imprints of situations that happen. So sometimes you'll see like residual hauntings where there's almost like a story that keeps playing out there. Like that energy is still kind of cycling through. I also think that it's possible that, souls can get sort of stuck between worlds or maybe not want to move on, or there's something holding them back. And I think there can be like echoes of that stay around.
I think, I completely agree. I agree because we did that for 10 years,
Yes.
Exploring exactly that type of theory. But in that 10 years, and maybe even beyond that, I don't want to limit you to that, but have you had an experience with a haunted house that's left a lasting impression on you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I could go so many different ways with that question because I grew up having experiences with hauntings. Like I lived in a house for a year when I was 9 that was very haunted, that kind of kicked off a lot of this for me. And I mean, I was always sensitive to energy even before that, but that was the first space that I called home that felt possibly unsafe or strange in some way.
Okay.
So maybe we'll talk about that because I definitely had lots of experiences with exploring other people's houses on Haunt Me, but there's something to be said about like the space that you live in having that
Your
energy.
haunted house.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think that's a good point. And I guess I haven't really thought of that before about how different even the sentence of a haunted house and my haunted house.
My haunted house. Because,
big difference there.
Yeah, your home's supposed to be a space where you feel safe and comfortable and that you can just relax and unwind. And if you live in a haunted house, maybe you have a nice haunted house that, it's mostly pleasant. But yeah, like the house that I lived in, we'd hear weird noises. There would be cold spots. There would be like strange energies of feeling like you're being watched. And then there would also be like sounds and visuals and lights going on and off.
So when you were there in your haunted house, how did you approach the situation and what did you learn from it? Did it help you kind of embark on the rest of your paranormal life with that setup when you were 9?
Yeah, I don't know that I really handled it at the time. I didn't know what to make of it, and I didn't really talk about it with anyone at the time. It wasn't until later on that I found out that my mom was having experiences there too. I think I was young enough that she didn't necessarily want to like put that in my head as something that was going on. But it is a little frustrating because I was often scared and nobody really validated like exactly why, like in the moment, I wasn't sure like what to make of it. But I think like after talking, it made sense, like why they wouldn't be like, yeah, the house is haunted, because that could be really scary for a child.
Do you think those non-answers kind of helped you push towards the paranormal in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, I'm definitely a person that approaches situations like with logic. Like I don't like start at, oh yeah, that's a ghost for sure. Or at least, that's how I try to approach things. But I think in that moment, there's so much had happened to me that I had no rational explanation for. And it just felt like such a weird kind of fringe experience that I just felt like I wanted to explore that topic and understand it and talk to other people who had gone through similar things and help them, because I was really scared, and I just wanted, like, part of my like mission with Haunt Me was helping it to become like more normalized. And I think
Totally.
that's happened more over the last like 20 years.
I think so too. And I think was definitely our goal to start as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Like how have we led to that? And again, kind of in the Haunt Me standpoint now, flipping the script a little bit from your haunted house to the haunted houses. Is there one out there that we haven't touched that you would love to investigate? Spend a night in something?
I mean, yeah, like I would, there's so much lore attached to like the Winchester Mystery House. Like I don't know like how actually haunted it is. Like I've heard a lot of stories, but I just want to see the architectural wonder of that space for sure. And then as far as an actual haunted house, I just want to go back to Hinsdale. Like we had so much happen at that location, like stuff that went beyond pretty much any place I had been to before.
I would also caveat that haunted house would, in this topic, would have to have an asterisk next to it when it coming to talk about Hinsdale.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot more, than a haunted house.
Oh, yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, the Hinsdale house is in New York, and it is one of the most haunted houses in the country. And I got to go there with Ty and the rest of our team in, was that 2021?
I think so. Yep.
Yep. And it was just beyond my expectations for sure.
Yeah,
I just feel like there's so much more to do there.
totally. It's hard to comprehend that there's questions that haven't even been asked yet. Like when we were digging, I was very much felt like what we were learning were the beginnings of other questions, not really so much answers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because it's not a big house. It's not like there's a lot of physical space to explore, but there's a lot of metaphysical space to explore.
For sure. It's like, it's not a Scooby-Doo environment, but it just in a different plane.
Yeah, exactly.
So wrapping up this section, before we get on to the mystery person that you've done a astrology chart for, what's your advice to any listeners that are currently living in their haunted house?
I think the biggest thing is intention and communication. So if you're wanting to change the dynamic of your haunted house, like if you're happy with the way things are going, cool. But if you are scared or if you're trying to understand more, just making your intentions clear. I find it's really great to be like understanding of the fact that this could be somebody who's really confused, who's like lost in this space, like trying to be a little bit compassionate and understanding, and as well as like also just being like, no, you can't be here. If you don't want them in your space, maybe offer them like the garage or something. Just be like, hey, like my family are here now. Like we are going to take care of this house. Like if we can help you with anything, let us know. But we want to make sure that you have this space. We don't go in the garage much. You can have it.
Yeah.
Like I would probably do something like that. Or, if you don't feel comfortable with that, just saying, I really don't want to engage with you. Like I think it's possible to communicate your intention in a very clear and concise way to spirits. And I think that that's worth trying. And then if that doesn't work, then there's other things you can consider down the line. But I would start there.
Absolutely. Start at a place that you guys can both meet at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you might feel silly talking into the air, but it's worth a try.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to now move over to our mystery person and then try to figure out what they have to do with haunted houses?
I would love to. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so the date that I gave you with no name is June 4th, 1975. The location is Los Angeles, California, and the birth time is 9:09 a.m.
Okay, so I pulled up this person's chart. They are a Gemini sun with their moon. Their moon is in Aries and their rising sign is Cancer. So the first thing that I noticed about this person that stood out to me is that they have Venus conjunct their ascendant. So people with this particular placement, especially in Cancer, there's usually some sort of tie in with the mother or being a mother. There's like this maternal energy with this particular placement. There's also a lot of creativity usually with them, or some sort of like attention to beauty. Like, you know, sometimes you'll see artists or decorators or just people that are beautiful. The other thing I noticed that this person has is an aspect pattern called a mystic rectangle.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, we've been friends for years and you've never told me about a mystic rectangle.
Get ready.
Okay.
Get ready. Let's jump into this mystic rectangle. Okay, so a mystic rectangle is kind of a weird aspect pattern because the amount of stuff that has to go right in the sky for it to happen makes it a very rare and unusual aspect. So what it involves is two oppositions. So we have, in this case, the Moon-Mars conjunction in Aries opposing down to Pluto, which makes this person somebody who, like, they rebel against just society. Like there's some sort of like rebellious kind of daredevil energy here. Moon opposite Pluto definitely makes this person have some issues with like control, like wanting to be in power and control. Then we have another set of oppositions. We have the Sun in Gemini opposing Neptune in Sagittarius. So those oppositions are crossing and then they're forming a series of aspects around them. So if you look at the chart, you can actually see this big rectangle with like a cross through it.
Okay.
That's
really cool
yeah.
and really accurate.
Really?
This is probably one of the most, you're like laying out point by point right now with this person, and it's blowing my mind.
Oh my God. Okay. That's great because I have no idea who this is.
Well, when I tell you, you're going to make these connections immediately.
Okay. So yeah, the Sun opposite Neptune, that usually makes for a very idealistic person, somebody who is really compassionate, but maybe like slightly out of touch with reality. There could be more of an openness to psychic phenomena with this.
Okay.
You sometimes see people who are sensitive with this placement. Like my mom has this placement.
Your mom has the mystic rectangle?
No. She has the Sun opposite the Neptune. Okay. Actually, she might have like a lesser form of a mystic rectangle. I'll have to check.
The mystic rhombus?
Oh my God. The mystic hexagon.
It just kind of like slanted a little bit.
Yeah, it's like not quite. It's like a free form geometry. Okay. So that is the mystic rectangle. And this person also has Jupiter conjunct midheaven, which would suggest like success or luck with achievements in life, having a little bit of like a one up. So I would sometimes see this with like people who are considered like Nepo babies, you know, like, which I don't know if that even applies here, but like.
I think they are. Like, I really do. I think their father made them famous or forced them to be famous.
Okay. Yeah. So, it could be like maybe the father wasn't famous, but like was like a stage dad, you know, like there's some energy of like somebody's helping you get there.
Yep.
Or either that or the universe is helping you get there. Like things are just conspiring in your favor.
I call out to all the powers that be that I wish to be a universal Nepo baby.
Oh my God. Right. Like a cosmic Nepo baby.
Cosmic astral Nepo.
The planets.
That's my new screen name if AIM ever came back or I flash back to freshman year.
Cosmic Nepo.
Cosmic Nepo.
I just love the idea of you just like having to explain that to people who are IMing you.
Well, I had to already do that with my original IM name because I liked mystery books like Sherlock Holmes, and my first AIM name was Mystery Man. Can you imagine how nasty that would be on the internet now? It's just like
Mystery Man
showing up in chat rooms as Mystery Man.
Yeah, that's just like the stereotypical creeper in the chat room.
Don't let your children talk to me.
Yeah, I swear I'm a teenager.
I am teenager from Maine.
Yeah, so that's mostly what I've got. There's a lot of Aries in this chart as well. Gemini and Aries and Cancer. Just definitely like a fiery figure, somebody who's not like passive in life.
I don't think they're passive at all. You ready for this?
I am ready for this.
Okay, so feel free to just break in while I'm telling you about this person and make those connections, because I think for our first episode, it's pretty great that the connections are obvious so that you can kind of see what we're trying to do here and showcase I don't know, these readings that you have no idea who this person is.
I'm glad that you're excited about this because I could have been like completely wrong.
Well, I'm so excited because I thought this was kind of like a weaker connection to the paranormal, but still interesting. But the way that this just landed, it's going to be great. So our historical birthday today is Angelina Jolie.
Whoa.
So wait until you see how...
She is a Nepo baby. John Voight's her dad.
That's right.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Wait, how is she connected to Haunted House?
Right. So that's the point of this podcast.
See, I wouldn't have even thought of her as an option. I was like going through, I was like Amityville, like.
Nope. It's ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, so Angelina Jolie Voight was born in Los Angeles in 1975. She's a name that doesn't really need any more introduction, but after your introduction astrologically, I think that there's a lot to highlight here where things will overlap.
She's a mom. She's got like a bunch of kids.
That's right.
Okay.
So she's won numerous awards for her acting career, but what I also want to hammer on too, especially with what you were talking about in your forecast, is that she has also won awards for her continued humanitarian work as well.
Sun opposite Neptune. Yeah. Somebody who really cares for the world.
And she goes the extra mile in that because she has also received the position of special envoy to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees because of the work that she does with the global community.
Wow.
So for her acting career, again, we're going to talk about the nepotism here. Her first appearance was in a film alongside her father in 1982. The film was called Looking to Get Out. However, Angelina's relationship with her father was kind of a strained one growing up. So I don't know how Nepo baby that locks on because she was kind of resistant to being lauded up into fame a little bit.
Yeah, and I think she definitely made her own way, but that was like the initial like step up, maybe.
Definitely. And I'd like to kind of put this out to you too, is it notes, or she notes that she had very difficult teenage years as well. She said that growing up, she had problems connecting with others. I don't know where that might play in, but in Beverly Hills School, she felt particularly isolated from the other students. And as she grew to be more of a nonconformist, she was eventually moved to an alternative school where she went punk, wearing all black, learning how to play with knives. And then she even eventually dropped out of school to study embalming and become a funeral director.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because that moon conjunct Mars in Aries, it's like rebellious and it's opposing Pluto. So it's going against the status quo. Like that's definitely what we would see there, like feeling a little bit like disconnected and not really wanting to fit in with everyone either.
Right. I think that was kind of the flavor of what I was reading too, is that it wasn't so much that she couldn't and was pushed out. She didn't want to.
Right.
And she also had some, mental health problems, with that. And there was some self-harm and suicidal ideation in her early life as well. She sought treatment, though, and then at 26, she adopted her first child, Maddox, which helped refocus her life. She tells, I think it was People magazine, she's quoted as saying, "I knew that once I was committed to Maddox, I would never be self-destructed again." So there's the mother.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and that's super clear from that Venus conjunct ascendant, and also her being like one of the most like beautiful figures in the world. Yeah.
Our modern day Aphrodite.
Yeah, exactly. That makes perfect sense. That's so crazy.
So even though she is that modern day Aphrodite, she also has a quote that says, even through film and media, I will always be still at heart I am still at heart and will always be just a punk kid with tattoos.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Also, her moon is square Saturn, which could indicate some level of like loneliness too. Or feeling like isolated in some way from society.
That's a bummer how much it's like locking on.
Yeah. Moon square Saturn is a hard aspect. I feel like people that have that, like, they need a little extra love.
So let's talk about the extra love because I think she gives it as well.
Yeah.
So her humanitarian work kicked off while she was filming Lara Croft Tomb Raider in Cambodia. Over there, she kind of saw the world as it is. And when she came home, she reached out to the UN to discuss what she and her status could do for assistance. They had her visit Sierra Leone and Tanzania shortly thereafter. And then after visiting these places, at that time, she had made the largest individual donation monetarily to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and that began her work in helping displaced persons in over 30 countries.
That's amazing.
So she is this varied individual who gives back. I see that motherly aspect of it.
Yeah.
What other aspects did you relate to Angelina Jolie, hearing that little bit of a bio there?
I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like, you know, she's just a very, like, a varied figure. So having that mystic rectangle creates like a lot of like uniqueness around her, because there's not really many people like Angelina Jolie. She stands out, like,
She
both
does.
in her appearance, in her work, in her humanitarian efforts. So to me, that makes sense. Also, yeah, that Jupiter conjunct midheaven, she does seem to, I don't know, I don't want to say like, you know, things are easy, but like for just in terms of her career, I feel like that has really like helped people like warm up to her. Like I feel like a lot of people just really are drawn to her and always have been.
It creates like an open road almost.
Yeah,
She has more of a pathway towards that success.
Exactly. I feel like, you know, she's got all this stuff in her 10th house, like her moon, her Mars, her Chiron are all, and her Jupiter are all in the 10th house in Aries. And so that's going to give a lot of like public persona energy. Like she was definitely born to be in the spotlight for sure. Anyone that has a lot of 10th house stuff, it's hard to hide away. And I just feel like she, you know, is known for things that, are kind of like outside the norm. And that's what she's trying to cultivate.
Yeah, I think that lands completely for her.
Yep.
So what do you think her connection to haunted houses might be?
I truly have no idea. I really know nothing about this. Like,
So and there's no way you could guess this. This is insane.
yeah,
Ready?
how did you even find this?
Honestly, I wanted to do something cool for the first episode, so I went down some alleyways, and this was a cool connection that
Okay.
I found. So Angelina Jolie is the mother of 6 children, and she raised the majority of them for the period of time that she was married to Brad Pitt in a haunted house in LA.
Oh.
But here's where we go deeper. According to People magazine, the actress Elvira sold her haunted house to Brad Pitt in 1994 and warned him about the incorporeal roommates, relaying that it excited him instead of deterring Brad Pitt away from Elvira's haunted house.
Wow. So he already lived in the haunted house.
That was originally owned by Elvira.
That's amazing. Oh my God. I
So-
grew up like with Elvira being
Right. Same here.
just
She's an entity,
she
you know?
is. She's just like the coolest goth lady.
And so Angelina Jolie is living in Elvira's haunted house via Brad Pitt.
That's amazing. I had no idea.
I
So
love
is
this
she
too.
still there?
I don't think
Okay.
they're divorced
Yeah.
now, but maybe Brad Pitt still is.
Yeah.
Elvira about her house had said, I've seen people walking around upstairs, for example, real people just walking. One time a ghost was sitting downstairs in front of the fireplace. Once I saw them in my bedroom, once out back. We saw a person floating around at the bottom of the pool, things like that. I know it sounds nutty, but I'm Elvira, you know? You should expect that from me, right? And I just love that
love her
quote,
so
right?
much.
So, yeah,
That's
so that
amazing.
is Angelina Jolie's connection to haunted houses, is that she lived in Elvira's old haunted house.
Did she ever make a statement about things she'd experienced?
I found nothing from Angelina Jolie talking about her own experiences there, just mostly that Brad Pitt loved it and was game, and then Elvira happy to talk about her haunted mansion.
So that makes me wonder if things were happening and Angelina just wasn't sharing it with the public, or if there was something about Elvira that made the spirits like more active than when the others lived there.
And there has to be something about Elvira that makes the spirits more active.
Of
Like that makes the
course.
most sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, she would get them to come forward. I know she would.
Get them to, yeah.
Oh my God.
Either way, you did great. But that's
Thanks
the
for
connection
that.
there. So yeah, awesome job with the Astro chart, Ash.
Thank you.
Did I derail you too much there?
Yeah, no. I'm
No,
just
we got to
laughing.
close out the episode now.
Okay, I'm ready. Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope that you were as surprised as I was by that. I really, truly didn't know about Angelina Jolie's haunted house.
There you go. And I didn't know about all those, the mystic rectangle in Angelina Jolie's sky.
Now you know that that's what was happening the moment that she entered this world.
And became Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
Yeah, exactly. She was born to raid the tombs.
Cool. Well, I am ready for more of that stubborn Taurus energy next week and for the 5 weeks after that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that next week. I mean, we're going to continue to feel that for a while. So, yeah, I hope you join us next Monday. And There will be some information in our show notes about where you can find us if you want to book a reading with me, or if you want to read along on Instagram for more forecasts, or find our Patreon. And yeah, please share our podcast or our YouTube with your friends. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Ask for that raise.
Yeah, do it. You deserve it. And
You
the
do
skies
deserve
are
it.
conspiring for you. Unclouded Eye stars Ashley Brooks and Ty Gowan, and it's produced and directed by Nick Nordfors. Music by Ashley Jane Cecilia and Jay Caron. Our community manager is Erin Cross. Art in our videos is by Dawn Aquarius. Unclouded Eye is presented by Hanmi.